Hello and welcome to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. I am your host, Drew Pelter. That is Nimmer. We are both wearing a tealish kind of color, but uh, Darian is out today. We have a good show for you. First, Nimmer, you were telling me a little bit about your day, but how are you doing today?
I am doing okay. I had a really good weekend. I ended up winning my first. Can everybody hear me? I think so. Yeah. Okay. Ended up going advancing in the playoffs, which was nice. Last week, our league was the only league that I was really in playoffs. The other leagues, either start playoffs this week or I had a first round bye. So going into or coming out of the weekend, it was really nice. All four of my leagues, in at least the top four. So I was really really excited. Going into Tuesday, I was like, all right, I can't wait to get on my computer and look at all the standings and stare at the standings for the hour or whatever, overthink everything. So then woke up, went to go drink coffee, watched first take or whatever, um, and took a shower, came back, and when I was coming, so right now my brother's in town for the holidays, and so this is the bed that he sleeps on, and so usually his phone is, or not usually, but because the charger doesn't reach all the way there, he just like whatever leaves it on the desk. I was like, so I sat down. I was like, I'll be a good brother, the good brother I am. It's like, let me go charge this while he's sleeping. So I picked up his phone, and then I saw something moving on the screen. I was like, oh, that's weird. It was like an ant. So I was like, oh, I'll just kill it or whatever. I'll take it off the thing. Plugged in his phone. Then I went to go work, started typing, and then I felt something crawling on my hand, and I looked down, and there's like 4 or 5 ants on my hand. I was like, oh crap, what is that? So then I looked down at the keyboard, and just ants everywhere. And so, backstory, let me rewind from yesterday. I had a drink on my desk that I ended up spilling, and it was a ginger ale. So I didn't really think anything of it. I spilled drink, you just kind of spill drinks all over or all the time. I'm pretty clumsy when it comes to my desk drinks. So I spill it, went to go get paper towels, dried it off or whatever. Didn't think anything of it. And then the next day I come back and there's just ants everywhere. This is the first time that I spilled something on my desk in California. In Arizona, we have an ant problem. My house has an ant problem, but it's mostly outside. It's not really inside. Like I never get ants inside. But here, oh my god. So I spent the first hour and a half of my workday just completely cleaning my desk. There's like a whole trail of ants coming from that window all the way to my desk. So I don't even know how they got onto my desk. But yeah, I was freaking out this whole morning. It was a rough start of the day, and then I just kept on going and going and going, and then ended up because I spilled it on this keyboard, which is a little gaming keyboard, which I like because I don't know if you can hear the clicking. So I had to take all the keys out, completely not soak it in bleach, but I like sprayed the crap out of it in bleach. Put all the keys back. Went to go plug it into the PC, and ended up just crashing. And then I tried to restart it again, crashed again. So then now I'm just stuck with this like work laptop, this little Dell um, keyboard. So it's been a long day, and I don't know why ants are even in this world. It's just one of those things where out of all these beautiful animals that go extinct, these crappy little ants are still ants and mosquitoes. Literally, the world would be so much better if they're just out of our lives. It's just so.
So, how long was the soda like sitting there for ants to come?
Well, so I had a mouse pad, so I thought like I dried it up, and and I honestly it was dry. By the time I went to bed, it was dry, so I didn't think anything of it. But I guess some of it got into my keyboard or on my keyboard, and so then that's why. So then I'd clean everything up, put my keyboard back, everything. I'd put everything back, and then I would like go outside, let the dogs out, and then come back inside, and there's like 5 or 6 ants still on the desk. And so then I would do the same thing, and then I was like, it's probably my keyboard, and so then I brought my keyboard out, and then that's when I did the bleach. Yeah,
I see. Wow.
it was so that was my day. That was a very unfortunate, eventful day.
Nice.
What about you? How's your day? How have you been?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been pretty down. I got eliminated from the fantasy football playoff last night. Lost by 3 points. Everybody on my team just got too scared of the bright lights, I guess, because I look around and I'm not sure who to blame. You had Cooper Kupp on Thursday night give you 0.0 points. Jawan Jennings had 5 points. DK Metcalf had 4 points. Bo Nix had 13 points. So, I mean, there was really nothing I could do besides maybe start Rachaad White, which I went back and forth a lot on Sunday. And if I would have started him, I would have been on to the next round. But that's fantasy football, baby, and I'm out. And so it's my mood has been pretty down today. It's something that matters to me a lot, and I can't believe it's over already for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Now it was a rough game, especially because going in, I was like, you needed it, and JJ started doing really well, and yeah, it was. I thought you had it in the bag.
It's Cooper Kupp, man.
Yeah,
The guy I felt so good about. He
yeah,
he screwed me.
0 points.
But you live and you learn. So
there's always next year.
Yeah, there's always next year, and I didn't get last, so that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, seriously.
Injury report really quick. There's really not a ton. I'm only going to keep it down to like people that actually matter in fantasy now that the playoffs is here. Browns tight end David Njoku, he's questionable with a hamstring injury. Their running back Nick Chubb, he's out. I'm assuming for the season he has a broken foot. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, he's questionable with an ankle injury. Dolphins wide receiver Jalen Waddle is questionable with a knee injury. Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker III is questionable with a calf injury. And then Washington's tight end Zach Ertz is questionable with a concussion. There's some other players in there. There's Giants players, there's Titans players, but I was like, they're not going to be making any difference in the playoffs. So
nobody cares about them.
The Pick'em League, Sammy is still up by a good margin, I think 4 or 5 games. And I looked at our spreads, and I think you and Darian are only 6 games behind me now.
Yeah.
So you guys have caught up.
I think we were tied going into this week, and then I think I'm ahead of him by 1. I believe so. It's a close race for second.
It's going to be interesting wrap up to the year because there's a lot of really interesting games, ones that matter a lot, including this one this Thursday, Broncos Chargers.
Yeah.
But let's get into some of the games from this past weekend. You had a really high scoring game with the Bills and the Lions. The Bills kind of come out and shock everybody by starting the game. I think it was 14-0, and then it ended up being 48-42 or something like that. Really high scoring game. I wasn't watching that game because I was watching the Steelers and the Broncos play at the same time, and I only had so much bandwidth to do that. Russell Wilson and the Steelers struggle versus the Eagles. Washington wins in a thriller versus the Saints. Broncos are 9-5 after beating the Colts. Chargers lose badly. I think it was 40-17. I can't remember, to the Bucks. Ravens offense soars versus the Giants. Seahawks maybe without Geno Smith after an injury, and they lost to the Packers. The Vikings beat the Bears, and the Raiders and the Falcons. If you watch that game, I only watched it because I had Bijan playing, and I was just praying he would get me the 3 extra points that I needed, and he didn't. So then I sat there at the end of the game like, man, I just watched terrible football for 3.5 hours.
That's so funny. I saw this meme. Speaking of last night's game, it's like a picture of like us in July or football lovers in July. I can't wait to watch football. I can't wait to watch football. And then this week it's just like I can get the football off the screen.
That Raiders Falcons game was so bad.
Oh my god.
You watch Desmond Ritter play and you're like, man, like, can you not throw more than 10 yards? What's the problem here?
And then Kirk is just something's going on with his head where he's just not doing well at all. So
I saw there's a lot of rumblings about Penix maybe starting here soon.
Yeah, I don't think they're. I mean, I think Raheem Morris came out and said this: we have a plan. We're sticking with our plan, no matter what happens, type of thing. So, I don't know. I kind of agree, especially you're paying this quarterback, so much. Why you're gonna bench him after the first year? Like, I don't know.
And we saw Penix in the preseason and didn't look great. I would imagine he's taken some strides, but what if he goes out there and he looks worse than Kirk?
Exactly. So you always think that the grass is greener, and in the practice they're like Penix is so good, but you don't know until I don't know.
But what were some of your reactions to some of the other games?
So the first in the morning games with California, it's morning. I know the East Coast it's 1:00, but in the early games, I should say, there wasn't really a game that really stood out to me, and I was like, these games aren't really that exciting. Ended up at the end, there was like a lot of close games, whatnot. Then in the afternoon games, I was excited for the Bills and Lions game, and the Steelers and Philly game. So those are the two games I was really interested in. Then in the afternoon games, there's no close games. You're just like, what the heck? But I think those two games were still the most interesting because good teams don't turn the ball over, and good teams, when the other team does turn it over, start capitalizing. And that's one thing that the Bills and Philadelphia did. Najee had a costly turnover, did a fumble. They ended up scoring and then couldn't really look back. And then going into with the Lions, we're like, how are the Lions going to how do the Lions look with all these injuries? Turns out not that good. I mean, granted, it's the Bills team. The Bills are arguably the best team in the NFL, but still, when you're going into the playoffs and all these injuries, they're going to start catching up to you, and that kind of just proved it this Saturday. So it's kind of the Super Bowl windows or the Super Bowl teams are starting to dwindle down, where you kind of know out of like there's probably like 3 or 4 teams where you kind of expect to go to the Super Bowl. But I don't know. I don't know if the Lions are really going to be it, especially with all those injuries and all that type of stuff. So,
yeah, they have a bunch of injuries. Their injury report is crazy looking because there's so many players on it. That includes running back David Montgomery. He's out for the season now with a season-ending MCL tear. Probably, not very good news for everybody except for you, Nimmer. You have Gibbs on your team.
yeah.
So I'm assuming you're feeling not great that he got injured, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a good feeling.
I'm excited. his projection went from like 17 to 20, 22, I think, or something ridiculous like that. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I mean, like you said, you never, especially the Lion. Like, I feel like that's truly America's team. Like almost everybody wants the Lions to do well. So it's just unfortunate that all these injuries are stacking on. And usually it was like the defensive side, so then the offense could kind of support the defense and that sort of stuff. But now with Montgomery out, that was knuckles essentially. That was the goal line, the 5 yard, the 3rd and 5, 4th and 5 type of player where you give him the ball and you can guarantee that 5 yards. So Gibbs is more of a catch out of the backfield, screens, do a bunch of sweeps and whatnot. So it definitely closes the playbook a lot more. But you never want to see an injury like that. But like you said, for my team, it's nice because I do have Gibbs. But for football in general, I don't think this is a good injury. I think it's so unfortunate for Lions fans because going into the year, you were so excited. You were so excited. This is going to be our year. This is going to be our year. Ended up coming out of the gates hot. People are saying are the best team in football, best team in football, best team in football, and then all of a sudden just injuries, and you just at the end of the day, I forgot who said this, but they're like football or at Super Bowl isn't the best team in the NFL, it's the healthiest team in the NFL. And that kind of just proves it because that's why the Super Bowl is at the end of the year, not the beginning of the year. If we wanted to know who the best team was, it'd be in the beginning of the year instead of the end. So it sucks, but it's football.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It really sucks. It kind of, makes the NFC a little more murkier in terms of like who's the team that's going to come out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are probably starting to bet on the Eagles, but you still have some other teams, the Vikings. They're 12-2. I still think the Packers are a big dark horse in the league right now. So there's going to be some other names that are going to be brought into the Super Bowl conversation with all these injuries happening to the Lions. I still think that the Lions are going to be okay. I think they're going to be a good team still.
They're young too. I mean, if you think about it, it's not like they're like the Jets, where in 1 or 2 years, the roster is gonna completely change. Like most of their stars are rookies, are still on their rookie contract. So in a couple of years, they might be like the Niners, where they're gonna have superstar top five paid, top five paid, top five paid. So that's the silver lining in all this because they are probably gonna have reoccurring plus with MCDC, they're gonna want to come back and play for them. So, it's unfortunate for the Lions fans, but there's always a silver lining with the situation.
Another injury that happened this week. This one's still pretty unclear, but TJ Watt for the Steelers, he went down with ankle injury. That's what it looked like. It looked like an ankle injury. Nimber, do you think he's going to miss time?
So, I don't think so. I think Mike Tomlin was optimistic about him. Reports came out and said Mike Tomlin came out and said that he is optimistic about TJ Watt coming out. But that being said, I think it's going to be the same as what's happening with Patrick Mahomes. I think what they should do, depending on how everything plans out, they play this weekend with the Steelers. He plays this weekend against the Ravens, and then sits against the Chiefs, just because that's a 3 days away from their game. That's a lot less. Plus, if you beat the Ravens, I think we will clinch the AFC North. So, we're not really playing for anything else. We're not going to get the first round or anything like that. So I don't know. I hope not, because I think we haven't won a game, or we won one game with him out and we lost. I forgot what the exact stat was, but we obviously, he's a game wrecker. He's arguably, in my opinion, he's the best defensive player in the league for the past 5 or 6 years. So there's another freaking ant on my desk. Love it. But so this is a huge injury. Luckily, it was a low ankle injury. So I think that's less severe than a high ankle. But yeah, you never want to see a player like that being hurt.
So did I hear that right? You think that Mahomes is going to sit out the Steeler game?
I think so. I think
Damn, that sucks.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just my opinion. If I was the Chiefs, that's what would happen. But if you like, if we're gonna call a spade, both of them are two very stubborn, hard-headed, tough individuals, and so I feel like if they can play, then they're gonna play. Especially going into the playoffs, you don't really want to sit and get that rust. The Chiefs don't want to play in Arrowhead. They don't want to play in Buffalo. So if it was me and if I was Andy Reid, I probably would play. Who do the Chiefs play this upcoming week? I should have known.
Texans.
I should know that. Texans.
Houston.
So I probably would play the Texans and then sit the Steelers, or vice versa, maybe. I don't know, because the 3-game break, that's a lot. I mean, that's not a lot of rest for them. So, I don't know.
That sucks. I hope they play Mahomes.
I know. Me too.
I hope we're not going to the Steeler game to watch Carson Wentz.
You're going for the experience, though. I'm telling you, it's one of the best experiences ever.
Yeah.
The Renegade.
Yeah, we will be there for that.
So exciting. Are you gonna bring a sign out? Remember you're talking about the signs?
Yeah, I want to do that. I don't have a Russ jersey, but I could still wear my Bronco jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of want to do that still. I think that'd be funny.
That would be funny, especially because it's gonna be televised too. So like the likelihood of it being on TV is very high. So
cool. We'll try. No, I'll put the QR code to this podcast on there.
Oh my god! I just got a notification from ESPN.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news: Michael Penix Jr. has been named the Falcons starting.
Oh wow!
Moving forward.
Wow, we were just talking about that.
That's
crazy.
Wow.
Michael Penix. So I mean, this is what you draft a quarterback within the first top 10 picks. I kind of had some worries about this for Kirk. If you draft a guy that high in the top 10 picks, there's going to be pressure there. There's going to be some pressure from either the GM or someone else in the building saying, hey, we have this guy on the bench that we just drafted very highly in this past draft. If that first string quarterback starts to struggle, we'd really like to see him play. And it's crazy. It's crazy because you just paid Kirk all this money and you just put him on this brand new contract. And now you have Michael Penix Jr. as the starter. I'm going to predict Michael Penix looks worse than Kirk. So really that offensive line before this year, they were saying that was like a better offensive line in the league. They haven't played that great this year. And if Kirk's struggling with that offensive line, I would imagine Michael Penix is going to struggle with that offensive line as well. What's your reaction to the breaking news, Nim?
Yeah, no, I don't agree with it. I think that with a rookie quarterback, I am a strong believer where he needs to sit at least a year. We saw it with Bryce Young, and the confidence in a young quarterback is huge. We're seeing it with Caleb Williams, and this is why Caleb Williams is holding onto the ball so much, because he's doubting himself. He is trying to do it all by himself. He's trying to do everything, and he doesn't have the confidence in his team, maybe. Or something's going on, but the confidence is not there. Bryce Young, going into the season, his confidence was at an ultimate low. So I don't agree with it, but I also didn't agree. He might be like a Drake May, where sitting out for the first couple games and then coming in, and he ended up doing really well. So it might do that. Same thing happened with Patrick Mahomes. Everybody was like, why are you trading away Alex Smith and putting Patrick Mahomes. So obviously, I mean, we don't watch the practices. There's nothing but positive feedback with Michael Penix. Um, he was actually, I was waiting for the offseason because I was going to load up on his rookie cards because they probably were going to be pretty cheap, and I do have confidence that he's going to do well. But I don't think this is a good, I mean, Raheem Morris just, you literally just said you have a plan, you're going to stick with the plan, and the plan isn't to start Michael Penix. So, but then all of a sudden you're starting him. So what does that say about the culture and what your word is also, which I don't know. It's crazy. I was not anticipating it being like this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those moves you see happen, and I think I just saw the stats earlier, like the past 3 games for Kirk. He only has 1 or 2 touchdowns, I think, that he's thrown and 9 interceptions or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hasn't been looking good, and you could only put was it 15 points up on the Raiders, and the Raiders are in position to be one of the top 2 picks in this year's draft. So
Yeah. I understand the decision, but then I just don't agree with it. If I was a coach, I probably wouldn't do that, especially because you have so much on the line. Like, this is a huge gamble because you don't know how he's going to be going into an actual NFL game. You see him in practice, you might see him going against your first team and all this other type of stuff, but you don't know when the bright lights are on how he's going to be. So this is a huge gamble. They're still in the playoff race. They still could win their division. But then you're going to do this. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
and if like we're kind of saying, if Penix doesn't do well, like you've probably really made things uncomfortable with Kirk Cousins now.
He has what, a 4-year deal, huh?
Yeah,
So so he's literally just a backup getting paid hella money. Like, you
yeah.
literally brought him in to show Penix the way, and then the way that you're showing him is if you don't do good within 3 games. It's not like he hasn't been doing good all season. There's a couple of games where I'm like, all right, Kirk is back type of thing. But then all of a sudden you don't do good for 3 games, and then we're gonna just sit you and start our new shiny toy. It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
It's crazy these teams that make these kind of moves in the offseason where they go out and they sign a quarterback from free agency or trade for one and they pay them like a boatload of money. We've seen it work. We've seen it work with Peyton Manning. We've seen it work with Tom Brady, Matt Stafford. There's a select few of guys where it's worked, but there's also been a lot of guys that has not worked. Russell Wilson, uh, Kirk
Dak
Cousins
Prescott. I mean, you
now.
can kind of go through all the starting quarterbacks: Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Watson, Deshaun Watson. You know what I mean?
Deshaun
Like,
Watson.
yeah, it's insane. But
Yeah.
the difference I feel like between Peyton Manning and Tom Brady is their second or third contract. They didn't get paid that much. It was more their fourth or fifth contracts where you're like, all right, you have shown us that you are really, really good. It wasn't just a one and done where one season you
Well,
did really well, and but they consistently did well. Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't say consistently did well. He did well
no.
last year, but I wouldn't say
He's
consistently year after year he was a top 10 quarterback in the league.
he's he's consistently been good in the regular season, but outside of the regular season, he has not been good. In the postseason, he's consistently been bad.
Yeah, but that's if he's a good quarterback, then pay him good quarterback money. Don't pay him all this money where it's a great quarterback, because then you have quarterbacks like Brock Purdy coming in, who I believe is a great quarterback, and he's gonna get paid. He's either gonna get paid, or he's not gonna get paid as what he's worth, because I like you said, these bad organizations are are overpaying for these quarterbacks, and they're not delivering. So, but the Niners, I feel like, are not a bad organization.
Well, even with Tom Brady's contract with the Buccaneers, it still was enough to, have Mike Evans on the table, have Chris Godwin there, have Levante David there, bring in free agents. They brought in a whole bunch of free agents that year. Peyton, when he was with the Broncos, they traded for Aqib Talib. They had TJ Ward. They had Wes Welker, DeMarcus Ware. Like, they had a bunch of guys still. Those contracts weren't massive enough to like completely wipe out your team. These teams that go out there and pay Kirk Cousins everything, and then you're going to bench him, like, you just kind of look that it just looks so stupid on your part.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy because like you have no GM experience, I have no GM experience, but like it's common sense. You go, 30% of the salary cap is going to one player. Because what people organizing a team says, we need a quarterback, we need a quarterback, we need a quarterback. But then all of a sudden you get a quarterback and then you're like, oh crap, we have nobody else to help our quarterback. You know what I mean? Like there's really only like one. I would say there's 3 quarterbacks in the league who you can put on any team and they will do good. 3 out of 32 quarterbacks, and that's Peyton Manning. I'm sorry, that's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. Those 3 quarterbacks, that's it. Every other quarterback needs a supporting cast. They need an offensive line, they need receivers, they need a running back. So you can't pay all 3 of those groups when the majority of the money is going to your quarterback. There's not that many good quarterbacks in the field in the NFL.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy news.
Yeah. I did not see that coming at all. That's wild.
I just said there's rumblings, and then 2 minutes after I said that, that was broken. That was crazy. But man, that's crazy. Who do they play? The Falcons.
They play the oh my god, I literally just had it. They play the Giants.
Oh, they play the Giants.
So it's a good team to kind of come out with, and then we're gonna come back next week and say, "Oh my God, he is so good. Raheem Morris is a genius." Blah blah blah, blah. And then he's gonna play a good team on. Well, he has the Giants, he has the Commanders, and then he has Carolina.
I mean, those are 3 not bad matchups, really.
Yeah, no, not at all. So it's gonna be interesting.
But if he loses all 3 of those, then we're gonna be like, well.
And then what do you do? Do you put Kirk back in?
I don't know what you're gonna do now, because like now you're probably looking at trading Kirk this offseason.
Yeah.
I don't think this is gonna go over well with Kirk. I think Kirk had already made it known that he didn't love that decision to draft Penix in the draft, and now you're gonna bench him. I would imagine things are very tense with Kirk Cousins right now.
So can they trade him? I wonder if there's something in his contract that says there's like a no trade clause or something like. Didn't he have that with the Vikings?
He did with the Vikings. I think now there's no. I think he's fully on the table to be traded.
Oh my god!
I think I'm pretty sure. So
that's wild. Oh my god! Imagine if he gets traded.
That's a huge contract. That, I mean, it's not Deshaun Watson big, but it's still a pretty big contract. It'd be interesting to see what teams would kind of go out on a limb to trade for him.
Or they just do the Broncos thing, where they pay the majority of the contract, and then you essentially just rent him out.
Yeah. That sucks though for 3 years. That's a long time.
Because you guys did it for what? You had one more. This was the only year in Russ's contract, right?
We did it for 2 years, I think. Or no. Just 1 year. Yeah, just 1 year.
Yeah, because Russ is going to be a free agent coming.
He was on the bench at the end of last year, and he was still making a lot of money then. But But that's crazy. That is crazy. I wonder what happens there in the off season. What a
Yeah.
crazy,
I hope it goes
crazy
well.
off season coming into this season for the Falcons, and then I would assume it's going to be very crazy in this off season for them.
Yeah, and I feel so dumb. Beginning of the season, I'm like they're gonna win the division. Halfway through the season, I was like they're gonna win the division. Now, definitely not gonna win the division.
I mean, it wasn't a bad guess. Like you think about some of the guys they have on the team and the people that they
Yeah.
brought in. It wasn't a bad guess. Yeah, I kind of thought Morris was going to be a better coach than this. I know that
Hmm.
when he was coaching, I think he coached the Buccaneers way back in the day,
Yeah.
and he wasn't good with them either. It kind of seems like he's not really a good head coach, to be honest.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't think that they should get rid of him because there's obviously a lot worse head coaches, but I don't think that he fits the team. Like the thing is with coaches is that you need to look at your personnel and say, all right, like Dan Orlovsky said that this today. He's like, Kirk Cousins is the best when it comes to play action pass.
Yeah.
But the Falcons are the lowest play action pass team in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, watching the Falcons, they don't
So
really have they don't really have an identity.
exactly.
Like Morris is supposed to be a defensive guy. They're one of the last ranked teams in defense this year. Their offense, like I don't understand their offense when I watch their offense. First of all, the receivers, McLeod and Mooney, outside of Drake London, like those two guys are wide receiver threes and fours on other teams,
Yeah.
and you have them getting a lot of receptions. You have Algier and Bijan switching off like every other series, and I'm like, why? Why are
Yeah.
you doing this? Makes no sense.
And I understand like the Lions do that, right? With Gibbs and Montgomery. But Gibbs and Montgomery, they're like a 1-2 punch. Bijan and
Yeah,
Algier, that is not a 1-2 punch. That's like a right hook and then like a what is it called? Like a eye gouge or something like that. You know what I mean? Like Algier is not a top running back in order for you guys to do that. So I mean, this kind of I don't know. This kind of happened with Arthur Smith last year, where they have a plan going in, but they don't take account of the personnel on the Atlanta Falcons. You
yeah,
have Bijan, which is arguably top 10 running backs, and you don't give him the ball that much. What do? You make it a split backfield. What sense does that make? Like you have a quarterback who literally made his money off play action pass, and what do? You don't. You just have him in the shotgun, or you do whatever the case may be. Like that's why I think Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings coach, is like one of the best offensive minds in the NFL.
he definitely is.
Because you can put any quarterback in that system, and he's like, "All right, you're good at this. I'm gonna switch my whole entire playbook in order for you to succeed."
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow. Well, good luck to the Falcons. Good luck to
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, everybody involved.
I hope Michael Penix does well. I hope he does like as good as people have been saying, but I think it's just a little too early. I think he will
I liked
succeed. I think that he's gonna do well. I just think it's a little too early.
I liked him in this past draft. I thought that I didn't think he was going to get picked in the top 10 picks. I thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought he was going to fall, and then we were going to look back and be like, man, Michael Penix was the one that everyone let go. But then the Falcons picked him in the top 10 pick. I think they were pick 8 in the draft, and I was like, okay, that makes no sense, but
Yeah.
okay.
See, I thought he was going to go to the Raiders. I bet you
Yeah.
if they didn't pick him, the Raiders were like about to pick him.
Yeah,
'Cause
I think so.
I think they should have switched. The Falcons should have drafted Brock Bowers, and then the Raiders should have drafted Penix.
Hmm.
Not saying that
Yeah.
he's not really good on the Raiders. Don't get me wrong, but like I mean, you have Kyle Pitts, who you drafted 3, 4
Yeah.
years ago, who hasn't really been producing at all. You know what I mean? So then you bring
Yeah.
another weapon to Kirk, but instead, what do? You draft his replacement like that. You still had 4 years. It's not like he was on a 1 year deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. One of the plays that happened this past weekend in the Colts and Broncos game, Jonathan Taylor fumbled at the half-yard line. This was a really big play because I think it was going to be. I remember I was up getting like a drink or something, and I came back and I saw him like cross the line into the end zone, and I was like, "Oh, there's a touchdown. That sucks." And then like I had the volume really low because I was at Sammy's family's house, and they were watching the Steeler game, and I didn't want to like be rude having the Bronco game blaring, but yeah, like it for me, I was like, what's going on? Because there was like a huge delay, and then they took the touchdown away. I think it was going to be 20-7, which would have been huge for them.
Yeah.
And it ended up being 13-7, and then the Broncos scored, making it 14-7, and then it ended up being a blowout, and Broncos won. That play changed the entire game.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's what's crazy is it's not like you kind of expect this with personalities like George Pickens, like I'm trying to think of like a showboating type of person. Jonathan Taylor's really not a big showboater. So it's crazy that he's like so excited to celebrate that he couldn't have held it on for the past past the line. And what's crazier is that you literally, well, I don't know if the players actually pay attention to what's happening in the other games, but the same exact thing happened to the Bengals defender.
Yeah.
Where he picked it up the fumble, came out, and then dropped it or something. Or I mean, same thing. He was going into the end zone free, and then dropped it and celebrated early, and then it went out into the touch. Ended up being a touchback. Well, that game was a little different because it wasn't. It didn't completely switch the momentum, but you see, I mean, come on, these are you're a professional athlete. And then you do bonehead mistakes like this, it's crazy.
Yeah, there should be some coaches out there saying, hey, I know you guys want to celebrate. Here's my rule. Cross the line, run to the back of the end zone, outside of the end zone, and then drop the ball and do your celebration.
And that's the thing. Like, once you're done, like you said, go to the back of the end zone or halfway through to the end zone. You're like, all right, I'm halfway through the end zone. Now I can drop the ball. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's crazy how it keeps happening too.
Yeah. It happened twice in the same game, in the same weekend.
Yeah. Just a couple weeks ago, it happened as well. Athlete. I can't remember what game it was a couple weeks ago, but it happened in one of those games too. Mm-hmm. And I think it happened in college a couple weeks ago too. I don't know how it keeps happening, to be honest.
Yeah. Bet you he won't do it again, though.
Oh, no. You don't. That's a mistake you make once. If you do that again, I mean, that saved the Broncos, that play. It really did. Because when it was 20, if it was going to be 20-7, I was getting really nervous about that game because that was a must win for the Broncos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, definitely. And like you said, like a 20-7 is a completely different ball game than, you're only down by one touchdown.
14-13 after the next drive.
Plus, you're just defeated. And that's just the Broncos side. Like the Colts, you're just so defeated. You're like, damn, we should have been up 7. Like the defense gets back on. You're like, oh crap, we have to go on here because he decided to celebrate early. And nobody was around him. That's what's crazy. It's like, I understand, somebody hits it out of your hand or something like that. but nobody was around him, and it was only you, and you just dropped the ball.
Yeah. That was bad. That was bad. Devondre Campbell from the 49ers. This was a bit of a weird story. This is all the way back to Thursday, so it feels like a millennial from now. But Devondre Campbell was reported by Kyle Shanahan to tell the team in the third quarter that he didn't want to play anymore. And they sat him for the rest of the game. Well, he sat himself, really. And now he's looking at a 3-game suspension by the 49ers. What was your reaction to this?
My reaction is, why didn't they just cut him? Terminate your contract. I mean, obviously, I don't know the logistics behind an NFL contract or anything like that. But after 3 games, then what? You know what I mean? I mean, 3 games from now, that's the rest of the season. So why not just cut him? Show your team a message. Show your team the message where, you know, that sort of thing. But it's just crazy to me that, like, as a kid playing football, your dream is to go to the NFL. Your dream is to play a down in the NFL. You get there, and then you say, no, I don't want to play. What's funny is that Dan Campbell was on a talk show radio that they started playing, and he was like, sometimes you just gotta get, like, you're so used to eating steaks that you forget what the moldy bread tastes like. The moldy bread that brought you to where you were to get you to the steaks. That's exactly what's happening to these professional athletes. You get all these millions of dollars. You get this big house. You go to all the clubs. You get all this royal treatment. You get all this other type of stuff that you forgot how you got there. And I don't know his story. I don't know, like, his upbringing or anything like that. But, I mean, playing in the NFL beats a 9-to-5 any day of the week. No matter all the crap that you have to go through, no matter all... I mean, he wasn't even a big star, so I'm sure he doesn't have to put up with that much shit. It's just so mind-boggling. Like, you're a professional athlete. You're literally living 80 to 90% of people's dreams. But you decide just not to play. You decide not to play. You were fully capable of playing on a great organization, but you don't want to play. It's awful. It's the only word I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, if you're saying that, why don't you just retire? Like, it makes no sense to be out there on a football team. I mean, everybody would kill for your job. And you tell your coach, I don't want to play. That's crazy to me.
And all right, you don't want to play. Next year, you're like, oh wait, I want to play. What team is gonna sign you?
Yeah.
They're not even gonna sign you to the practice squad, let alone their actual team. It's crazy. I was shocked. What's crazy is I was watching that game, and I mean, I kind of was paying attention, but not really because it was a boring game. But then, like, they didn't even really show it on the broadcast that I noticed.
No.
So at first,
It's kind
go ahead.
it can be kind of hard to catch those kind of interactions on the sideline.
Yeah, no, I'm not blaming the broadcast at all, but like, it really wasn't publicized until after. One of my I had like a work meeting, and we were talking about football or whatnot because we have a work fantasy group, and he was like, yeah, like yesterday I didn't watch the game, but I heard somebody just walked off the field or something like that. I thought he was talking about Greenlaw, or the linebacker that hurt his knee, hurt his Achilles in the Super Bowl. I was like, no, I feel like the season's kind of over. Like, why injure yourself more? Like, I would rather you do rehab. You know, like, if he said, I don't want to play, completely fine, because he's coming from an injury aspect, right? But if you're not coming off an injury and you just tell your coach, no, I don't want to play, period. No, I don't want to play. I don't want to rupture it a little bit more. Like it's just so crazy.
Well, and like Fred Warner's out there playing with a fractured ankle.
Exactly.
The guy next to you is playing with a fractured ankle, and you're healthy and you don't want to play. It's insanity.
It's wild. It's utterly it's ridiculous. No other way around it.
Why don't we do a hot take Tuesday?
All right. Um All right. So my hot take is um I believe and I really hope I am right. There's rumblings around this coach getting let go. But this coach lost all his weapons. Not his fault. Doesn't have a quarterback. Not his fault. And his best player is out. There's rumblings that Al Davis is going to let Antonio Pierce go.
Mm.
And my hot take is that he's going to at least get another year when they draft Shador Sanders. They're going to test him out with Shador. They're going to say, here's your quarterback. That's one of the only pieces that you're saying that you need. Here's your quarterback. Granted, he doesn't have any weapons or anything like that. Maybe they go and get Higgins or they go get another receiver and whatnot. But I strongly think that they will re-sign Pierce.
I like that take. I hope they do that.
Yeah, same. I really liked him. Like, it's one thing is that with the Raiders, there's like Raiders have a specific aura, personality toward them that Antonio Pierce embodies. It's really hard to find that in a coach that could care less about the Raiders. Like Antonio Pierce actually cares about the Vegas Raiders. You're not going to find another coach like that. And imagine if they did that with Campbell. Like looking back at it, Campbell did really bad his first couple years coaching, and now look at him.
True.
So
Very
hopefully they take that into account and they still stick with Pierce, because I think that's going to be the best option they get.
That's good. I like that. My hot take, I think mine's going to be a college hot take. I don't really have one for the NFL. My hot take is Oregon wins the national championship this year, and they run it back next year, and they repeat as champs. I'm going to say that's my hot take. I think that's a pretty scorching hot take, but
yeah, back-to-back national championships, that would be crazy.
Yeah, for Oregon, I'm going to say that's what happens.
Because is their team young? I mean, I don't know too much about college football, so is their team young? Like, how many people are going into the draft?
So the reason I say that, they're going to have a bunch of people that go off to the draft. They have really good receivers this year. Tez Johnson and Isaiah Stewart, I think, is the names. They're pretty good. They have a good tight end. I like their quarterback. In the solo episode I did, I talked about Dylan Gabriel a lot in that episode. I said he's going to be the Trey Lance in this year's draft. I think he's going to be the guy that rises really late towards the end of like when the draft's about to start, and he'll be picked in the top 10 picks. He'll be the one that we don't really see coming.
Hopefully, he doesn't play like Trey Lance.
Hopefully, he's better than Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I think he will be better than Trey Lance. I think by the end of, I believe they're going to win this year's championship. I think by the end of this run by them, I think there's going to be a lot of heads turned towards Dylan Gabriel, and I think he's going to be a very highly drafted player in this upcoming draft. And really, people aren't talking about him right now as one of those players. But the reason I say that is I really like the coach, Dan Lanning. I think of the coaches remaining in this college football playoff, I really like Kirby Smart. He's probably the best strategic coach, but I think the best overall coach, I think, is Dan Lanning. And I think he's going to be the reason they win this year. And I think he'll be a massive reason why they win next year. And they recruit really well. Oregon, they do a really good job of recruiting. Every year they have one of the top highest recruiting classes, and it's been very strong with Dan Lanning. He's a you watch him, and like even when he was going up against Colorado last year, and I'm a Colorado fan, like you would think I wouldn't like this, but there was the speech right before the game, and he said because Colorado came to Oregon, he said we're going to go out there and we're going to play football today. He said they play for clicks over there. We're going to take this from them. And he was like, you could feel how like hyped up the locker room was.
Yeah, that was.
And they went out there and they beat the shit out of Colorado. So I think he's a good coach. He's a good coach. He earlier this year against Ohio State, there was a play at the end where he purposely put 12 people on the field so that the clock would run out, and they got the penalty. So it brought Ohio State up 5 yards, but instead of having 10 seconds left, they had 2 seconds left. And it was a really smart play. Like no one's ever really done that before. He's a really, really smart coach. Because that's kind of a loophole. There's really nothing you can do about that unless they change the ruling on how they manage the clock there. And that was something he was paying attention to, which I thought was really impressive.
That's crazy. You don't think that North Carolina is going to do well?
You know, I don't really know how that's going to go. They've been a decent college program for a little bit now, like the past couple of years. It's hard to predict. I don't know if Bill Belichick is going to recruit like some of the other guys. I think it's good from a standpoint that Belichick is going to have like a whole different feel in his locker room. I think, you hear college coaches talk about the difference between coaching college and coaching in the NFL. People that coach in the college atmosphere, those players tend to come with more hunger to come into work every day and get to practice and play in the games and stuff like that. It's kind of changed now with the NIL, but I still think there's more hunger there compared to NFL players. I mean, Devondre Campbell is the biggest example. So from that aspect, I think that's great for Bill Belichick. I think he's going to like really rally around that feeling of having people that want to come to work and play. But I do kind of question like how he will be recruiting compared to these other schools. North Carolina hasn't really been bringing in huge recruits in the past decade, really. Besides Drake May. Drake May was a big player they brought in. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be one of those things like you're competing with Oregon, who's a really, really good recruiting class. Ohio State, they just had $120 million roster or whatever it was. Colorado just signed D tackle from Alabama, the number 1 player in the transfer portal. They just signed the number 2 quarterback in the recruiting class. They've signed a top 10 linebacker. There's so many schools like that right now. Oregon is a perfect example. Every year they have like 2 top 10 recruits come to their team. Alabama is still recruiting heavily. Clemson's out there. You have so many teams that recruit heavily, very, very, very well, and they've been doing it for a long time. I kind of question, is Belichick going to be good at that?
Yeah, I think he's going to the way that he is going to recruit is using his name, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think that's what Deion Sanders essentially is doing as well. So I think their recruiting aspects are going to be very similar. The thing that they have that other people don't is the Jordan brand.
Hmm.
You get all these, like, if you turn Jordan into a junior Oregon, sorry, if you turn North Carolina into like a junior Oregon, have nice uniforms, have like all your stuff completely Jordaned out, get the Jordan shoes, like that sort of thing, they will cut. They 100% that will increase um your recruiting aspect. But then Michael Lombardi being the GM, like just all of that, I think that's going to be really well. It's gonna be interesting. And then I just saw like a notification that Mike Vick is a
Hmm.
coach now, and then what's his name? The Colts quarterback is coaching Stanford, or is he a GM for Stanford or something like that?
Talking about Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck. Yeah, he. I think I don't. Is he a coach or a GM?
I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
Oh
That's news
yeah,
to me.
he ended up becoming uh, something with Stanford. Uh,
Yeah, they hired him as a GM.
a GM.
Wow.
So it's going to be interesting to see if some of these pros are going to come down to college and see how they do.
Yeah. I think it's cool to see. I know like there's people out there saying, you know, Bill Belichick, you have that record as a NFL head coach like right around the corner. I mean, it's not really that close, but like why wouldn't you continue in the NFL? We've seen this guy operate in press conferences. I don't think he gives a shit about that, to be honest with you.
He came out and
I
said
think,
that on the PMS.
oh, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure like he doesn't really care about that. I'm glad to see that he's going to a different avenue and he's trying something else out. I think college will be exciting for him, and yeah, I mean I'll definitely keep an eye on them next year just to see how they do.
Yeah. I think it's a lot more. I feel like it's more challenging. It's more rewarding than the NFL. Honestly, like the NFL, your biggest reward is the Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Super Bowl is really cool, but then when you already have six of them or eight, or I think like that, right? Because throughout his whole entire career, coaching career, he had like eight or something like that with the Giants. Or yeah, so like you already accomplished that. What other challenges do you have besides just getting another one and then getting another one and then getting another one? You know, but college, you're like wanting your players to succeed and go to the NFL and then be great. Like I think that is more challenging for Bill Belichick in his career right now than winning another Super Bowl or
Yeah,
breaking a record or anything like that. So
1,000%. I think it's a fun move. College football's it's been really interesting how like the past couple of years it's worked between the NFL and college football. Like I don't remember so many coaches from the NFL going to college and then like staying there. Like usually coaches in college, they all kind of float around in college. They stay in college. A couple of them try the NFL out and then come back. You don't really see a ton of head coaches going from the NFL to college.
yeah, and that's one thing that if I was a big college football person that I would be scared about is that college football is starting to turn like the pros, turn into the pros with the whole NIL deal, with the whole transfer portal, with the whole all of
Mhm.
that. Those two things alone honestly can ruin college football and make it into just like just a like the G League in the NFL.
It could end up being a very sweeter deal for like running backs, for example, if they're at a point where they're playing college or getting recruited for college, and a college team says, "Hey, we'll pay you $4 million to come to Ohio State," and they're like, "Okay." And then in the NFL, they're like, "We'll pay you $390K," and they'll be like, "I'll just stay here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much."
No, 100%. It's true. I mean, I feel like that's what's gonna happen, is that especially like running backs and quarterbacks. I mean, if you think about some of these quarterbacks, they can make easy a $10 million at a school.
Yeah.
I don't think the NFL rookie contract is that much, is it?
I don't know what the rookie
Yeah.
contract is, but
I don't know.
compared to what and for some positions like running backs, linebackers, tight ends, those kind of guys, like the highly recruited ones in college, they're probably getting in the next couple of years. They're probably going to be getting more in NIL money than they will in the first 2 years of their NFL career.
Yeah, no, I could see that definitely, especially the way that college uses running backs, compared to the NFL.
Yeah, and in the NFL, running backs are so like they last for 5 or 6 years at the most. So it's kind of sad because if they do stay in college, and that's the same sort of stats we're seeing, they're going to be playing 2 or 3 years in the NFL, and they'll just be kind of rentals in the NFL.
Yeah,
that really sucks.
Yeah, they need to do something about college football, though. Honestly, I don't know what they can do, but they need to do something about the whole transfer portal, and then they need to put like a salary cap with college football, because then it's going to be like baseball, where the team with the highest salary cap wins every year.
Yeah, I agree. They got to do something about it. And I mean, that's Ohio State this year. But yeah, they definitely have to do something about it. Even like some of the transfer portal issues they're seeing already, like the season hasn't even ended, and the backup from Penn State said he's transferring, and the backup from another school said he's transferring.
Yeah. See,
which is crazy.
That's why I don't know if Saban really came out and said this, but I think he did some interview or something, and he was like, "This is why I retired."
Yeah.
Because I did my exit interviews. My exit interviews were usually in the past, they've been like, "What do I need to do in the off season to get better? What do I need to do to become pro? What do I need to do in order to be successful in football?" But this past season, before he retired, I should say, almost every single one is like, "How much are you gonna pay me going on to the next season?" "Oh, well, I want $100,000. "Oh, you're not gonna pay me? I'll just transfer somewhere else." Like, what happened to the, you know what I mean? It's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the college football playoff. They still need to fix some of those things, but they definitely need to fix this NIL and transfer portal stuff, because I mean, overall, just because the kickoffs, I think the product of the football is better in college. But when you have these players like getting treated like this, like eventually the product's going to be exactly the same as the NFL.
Can you help me understand? Because this has been bothering me for the longest time with the whole college football playoffs. Why is there a committee for the playoffs for football? There's no committee. You know exactly the layout and all that type of stuff, right? For college football, why is there a committee, and why is it based off other people's opinions? Like, I understand there's a lot of games. I mean, a lot more teams, obviously. But then they should be like, all right, if you beat a ranked team, for example, let's say that's plus 10 if you win. If you lose to a ranked team, it's plus 5. If you beat a non-ranked team, it's plus 5. You know what I mean? Like, why can't there be some type of point system? Why can't it just be all of that instead of the eye test. Oh well, you're injured.
Yeah.
Like that's such BS.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know what they're going to do about that. I think they're still trying to figure that out. They have a lot of rules and regulations in college that were just made a long time ago, and like they're just outdated. And I think that has to do with it. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. It's tough, like the college football playoff, because like before the playoff started this year, there's a lot of questions on like who they were going to let in, who they were going to keep out, and like honestly, I feel like it was a pretty safe selection process. Like Boise State, SMU, Penn State, those teams being in there, like we haven't seen those teams in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You could have easily knocked one of those guys out and brought Alabama in, and that would have rose hell for everybody because they already lost like 3 games this year, gotten blown out by Oklahoma. So like that would have pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people would argue on the other side, like Alabama's a great team still. Like they have a lot of really good talent, even though they've lost 3 games.
Exactly. But then that's what I'm saying. It's like there shouldn't be any argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about playoffs. We're talking about when this person plays. You know what I mean? Like that's my thing. In the NFL, there's no argument to say this team should have made the playoffs and this team shouldn't.
Well, what makes it tough too is like you have, the winners from each of the um, conference championships in the playoff in most cases. So like we all kind of know the top team in the SEC is going to wipe out the top team in the ACC. Like that's not going to work if they meet up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. But then, but that's right now. The top team of the ACC has a first round bye, and then the top team of the
yeah.
SEC has a first round bye. So they're gonna meet maybe in the championship if they win, but it's more of the first round. And then why isn't the second round a first round a home game? I don't get that either. Like that's one thing I've never been into college football because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like the common sense that should be in college football is not there, and that's what deters me from college football.
Well, and a lot of it is money. Like when those games aren't in like their home state, I think it's just because there was a promise that said location was going to get that big college football game, and they have to fulfill those promises because they are going to be getting a lot of money.
Yeah, that's true. Like I think Arizona, I mean the Cardinal Stadium is in the Fiesta Bowl or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean I guess,
Yeah.
but then it's just move the Fiesta Bowl, just move it to
Yeah.
wherever. Like can't they? I mean obviously they get a lot of money like that. The city
I
gets
mean,
a
no
lot
one
of
even
money, but why should the college football care about that?
no one even cares about the bowl games anymore.
Yeah, I mean now they're changing the bowl games into the the second round of the playoffs or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not turning my TV on to watch the fucking Pop Tart Bowl. Like,
Hey, I have
you
to
know,
say that trophy is dope as hell though. You see the trophy? Oh my god,
I have
it's
it.
really cool. It's a toaster inside the toaster inside the football. It's like a football trophy,
No,
and then but it's an actual toaster. So they ended up there announcing it, and they ended up making a Pop Tart, and then like
wow.
they ate it. It was so funny.
Why don't we move on to Rage Cage?
I was waiting for this segment.
Why don't you go first?
All right. So, everybody is watching. I'm assuming that you like football. Okay. Best thing that happened to football was Red Zone. Right? So, when you turn on your TV, best thing that you can hear is 7 hours of commercial-free football. Well, this week turned on my TV, and I actually didn't even pay attention if he said So I wish I can go back and see if he actually said it. But this week, watching Red Zone, all of a sudden, the TV that I'm right here, right? The TV would be, or the game that's on right now, all of a sudden becomes a smaller screen, and a freaking, or I can cuss because it's Rage Cage, a fucking commercial pops up on my fucking screen. The best thing about Red Zone is you can watch multiple games. You can see what's happening in the games because there are no commercials. But all of a sudden they want to do fucking commercials? What the fuck? I will be okay with them putting like the ads around the TV. That's okay. But that should be it. I shouldn't have to see a whole fucking commercial on the fucking screen. It's 7 hours of commercial-free football. Commercial-free football means no motherfucking commercials. I'm tired of this shit. Nobody's gonna fucking go to Allstate because they saw a fucking commercial. This is some bullshit. Stop it. Stop being greedy. Best thing that happened in football is the fucking red zone. Don't ruin it. Period. End of story. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't care how much you're making. It's not worth it. Stop.
For my Rage Cage, I'm gonna talk Travis Hunter.
Okay.
There is a lot of people out there pissed off about the Heisman and how it was voted for, and how a lot of people think Ashton Jeanty should have won the Heisman this past year. Here's the problem with Ashton Jeanty. I love Ashton Jeanty. I'll be honest with you, didn't watch a single Boise State game this year, but I've seen the highlights. I can tell he's really good. I'm not watching Boise State, first of all. Second of all, I did the research. There's been 30 running backs that have rushed for 2,000 yards in college history. A lot of big names in there, but a lot of names we've never heard of before. One name that really stuck out to me, Melvin Gordon. So that's where your argument ends. There's been people on the list that have rushed for 2,000 yards twice. Jonathan Taylor did that. That's where your argument ends, because it's not that spectacular of a thing for a running back to rush for 2,000 yards. Yes, it's a fantastic thing to have happen. It's great. Travis Hunter was an All-American on both sides, offense and defense. That has never been done before. Never once. We've never seen this. You've never seen a guy play that many snaps. And people are like, well, you could just say Taysom Hill should be the MVP. Taysom Hill's not an all-star at what he does. He's a good player. He's a gadget guy. Travis Hunter is an All-American on offense and defense. The best corner in college football and a top 10 wide receiver. We got to stop this argument because we've never seen what Travis did. We've never seen that. He's the Heisman. He won it for a reason. It makes complete sense. Thank you, everybody.
He needs to find a new fiance, though.
Everybody's hating on her.
Huh?
What's going on with her? I haven't
She's
seen.
just being like a little like, and she actually came out with like a 30-minute thing, and I like watched like 5-6 minutes, and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to waste my time. But I guess, and I honestly don't know, it just comes up on my feed, but I guess like during his his Heisman speech, she was like the last one to stand up. Like it wasn't even like seconds. Like she literally sat there and then waited till everybody stood up and then stood up. And then after the Heisman, I think he was taking pictures or something like that, doing like a photo shoot, not a photo shoot, like fan photos and stuff. And she's like, am I going to have to sit here for longer? I have to sit here all day? or something, you know, things like that. Like, and you're just like, bro, shut up and sit there, okay? Like, look who you're dating. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want all this, then don't be dating Travis Hunter. Like, what do you your fiance just won the Heisman, the biggest award in college football, and then you're like, do I have to sit here all day? Like, what happened to being a supporting wife? Like, if my girl, oh my god, if my fiance said that, I would be like, give me my ring back immediately, because you know he's going to the NFL, top 5 pick. But you don't want to sit there for one day of your life with this is the biggest day of my life? Fuck out of here. One thing that I do have to say about Travis Hunter, I do have to say, because I looked it up and I can see both sides. So I'm pretty indifferent. I don't really pay attention to college football. But what would you say makes a good corner? Would you say like stat wise? Would you say interceptions?
I would say the less time someone throws you the ball in your direction makes you the best corner.
But there's not really
And
a stat for that, is there?
no one's throwing him the ball. That makes you the best corner.
Fair enough. Because the argument for that would be like, well, Travis Hunter has 4 interceptions all year. He's ranked 18th in interceptions for college.
Because no one's throwing it to him.
Yeah. Okay. For me, I can see both sides. Honestly, I'm very indifferent because I can see Ashton Dempsey getting it, but I think that Travis Hunter won the Heisman after like the 3rd or 4th week. Honestly, I mean, they're talking about Travis Hunter winning the Heisman before the Heisman was even made, probably. So, I don't know. I'm glad he won. He's a hell of an athlete, so good for him.
I mean, it's like what everybody does in Madden or college football, like the video game. You make a player and they are like dominating everywhere. That's what he's doing in real life.
Yeah. Didn't my brother told me that he won the most awards.
Yeah, he won the
college football or in any college player, right?
Yeah, he won the Heisman, the Maxwell Offensive Player of the Year, the Bolitnikoff, the Jim Thorpe, I think. So like 4 different awards or something like that.
That's wild.
Two All-Americans.
That's crazy.
That's what's crazy. He was an All-American on both sides.
Yeah.
Like you could say, well, Genti deserves it because he was really good at scoring 30 touchdowns, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't have 2 All-Americans to his name. He's not an All-American at running back and linebacker.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Do you think that when he gets drafted, what position is he playing? Because there's no way he can do both ways.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a corner. He's better at corner. He should be a corner, unless he says I want to make more money and go play receiver. He can do that, but I think he'll be a corner and he'll have packages on offense.
I can see that. The thing is with being a receiver is there's so much more competition, I think.
Yeah.
You know, like as a corner, like there's Surtain. I'm just listing all the corners I really know. Porter Jr.
Jair Alexander.
Gilmore, but he's hurt.
Sauce
Gardner.
Yeah, no, with receivers, you have so many.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, especially with fantasy-wise. Like, honestly, if I was a receiver, I mean, if I had the choice, I wouldn't even want to be a receiver because of fantasy. You have one bad game, and then you get DMs, and you get all this. You suck. You only got me 0 points. You lost me your lead. You lost me my lead. You know what I mean? Like, people are crazy.
Yeah. He'll be my overcooked for next year because some idiot out in our league will be like, I'm going to draft him in the 3rd, 4th round. I'm going to be like, you're an idiot. Like he's going to give you 40 points all year. Like, come on.
Travis Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
There's going to be a lot of people that draft him in the fantasy draft because they think he's going to score a bunch of touchdowns on offense, and that's just not right. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
It's crazy.
Do you want to take a break, or do you want to go through the rest of the show?
No, we can keep going.
All right, let's power through. We have fantasy MVPs from this past weekend. So I was looking at this. I know Josh Allen was up in there as one of the top scorers. I think Lamar was. What sucks is the weekly recap doesn't show you like, oh, it does. Now it's showing me. So you had Devontae Adams, number one. He had a crazy game, 42.8 points. Josh Allen, 41.3 points. Jared Goff, 41.1 points. Amon Ra with 37.3 points. And Mike Evans with 36.9 points. And right here, you can see the false start was Cooper Kupp. So makes my heart happy. But let me get some of your reactions from some of those top players. Did you see any of these games?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, he's just a monster. Every day goes, every time I see him, I just shoot myself in the foot. I mean, I just kick myself in the butt by saying, like, last year, in the beginning, I didn't think he was going to do well. I was like, listen, he's not going to do well because he's going to turn the ball over. He's going to try forcing it. He doesn't have receivers. And he completely proved me wrong. And I think I saw this one thing where it was like Lamar Jackson threw 5 touchdowns and then ended up going lower on the MVP race. So that was cool. So obviously Josh Allen was really nice. Devontae Adams, I think that was a big surprise, and that probably helped a lot of people out. James Conner was another one where definitely helped me out a lot. I remember in the beginning of the game, he wasn't doing that well, and then all of a sudden, towards the end of the game, he just started popping off with 110 yards and two TDs. McLaurin helped me, so it was one of those, like, if you had these players, your team won. If you had these players, your team lost.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you had Cooper Kupp and Juwan Jennings,
Yeah.
lost. And DK. Man, by the way, Nim, you 100% won that trade earlier this year, so congratulations. DK really didn't help me at all because he was hurt for the first 2 weeks after I got him, and then he was terrible the following weeks after that.
I forgot, what was the trade? Oh, it was James Conner and Darnell
Mooney and Hopkins.
Yeah.
For DK and Rachaad White. And Warren. I should have started Rachaad White, but you live and you learn. It was cool to see Devontae Adams with a little bit of a return with 42.8 points. I feel like it's been a long time since we've seen him score over even like 28 points.
Yeah.
Mike Evans too. Another really good game by him. Kind of was expecting some really big games from him to end the year.
Yeah, he was definitely giving me a scare. I was playing him this past week.
Let's do the defense start of the week. So these will be defenses you should probably pick up from the waiver wire if they are there. Someone that we have high confidence in based on their matchup. Nimmer, who do you have for your defense?
So and I thought about this earlier. I was like, there's like 4 teams in the NFL that you should be fading, and the New York Giants are one. 4 offenses that you should be fading if you're looking at defenses, and the New York Giants are one. So the team that is playing the Giants, team that we've been talking about having breaking news, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I know what you're thinking, especially with this new quarterback, but against the Raiders, they popped off. They got 21 points, only allowed 9 points, 21 fantasy points, only allowed 9 actual points, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 4 sacks. Although they're ranked pretty low, so that means that they will be on on the waiver wire. I think that is an ideal matchup, and this might save your team, honestly. And I really like the Falcons this week. Their matchup this week. I don't even know who's the starting court is. DeVito just got hurt too, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if Drew Lock can play or not, but it was Tim Boyle
So yeah,
this past week.
I mean my point. And the Falcons still have something to prove. I mean something to play for. So it's not even like they're just gonna be whatever, just going through the motions and whatnot, trying to work for their paycheck or whatever. Like they actually can make the playoffs, so they're gonna play hard. They're gonna do. I think they're gonna do really well in defense.
Yeah, I think they just had like 17 points or something like that, 16 points, the Falcons.
Yeah, they had 21 points last game, -2 against Minnesota, which I get, 13 points against the Chargers, and the Chargers are a pretty good offense. So
Yeah. And for me, I've got the Colts defense. This is another team probably in Nimmer's offenses you should fade. That Titans offense that they'll be going up against. It's weird because I'm looking at the waiver wire right now, and they have the Titans with more projected points than the Colts defense. I definitely think it'll be the other way around.
yeah, that is weird.
It looks like it hasn't been announced, but a lot of people are thinking Mason Rudolph is going to get the start because he came in towards the end of the game last week because Will Levis threw 3 interceptions and fumbled and was just turning the ball all over the place. So it looks like it'll be Mason Rudolph. I think Mason Rudolph's a better quarterback than Levis, but from what I saw earlier this year when he played, he's not that much better. So I'm going to take the Colts defense this week.
I like those. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the good defenses are really going up against hard opponents. Like I have the Chargers defense going against Denver's offense, which is a pretty good offense. Steelers going against Baltimore's offense, which I don't even know who to start between them. So I might just pick up the Falcons. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are 2 good defenses that you can pick up.
Both threw 3 picks this past game, so.
Yeah.
So we're going to play a little game here. This is not the one-word game, but it's something similar. I'm going to throw out a couple teams to you, Nim. I want you to give me one thing that these teams need to fix in order to help their fantasy stars. Make sense?
So they're fantasy stars, right? Not like the actual team, like fantasy wise. Okay.
Yeah, like their fantasy stars. So like you're not going to be like, oh, their defense, because that doesn't really make sense. You're going to say probably something to do with the offense or the coaching or something.
Okay.
First team, the Arizona Cardinals.
I would say play action. Is it one word or I can just say?
No, you can go in depth on one thing.
So I haven't really been watching the Cardinals a lot recently, but I think what will help Kyler Murray a lot, and I think this is what Kyler Murray does well, is he likes throwing on the run. So if you give him a play action, because running, if you play the Cardinals, you have to stop the run first. So their box is gonna be full, and a lot of the defenses are probably like, I'd rather Kyler hurt us with his arm or beat us with his arm than Connor beat us with his legs. So I would do a lot more play action and play action boots. put McBride down to the seam, and so then he a nice little dump off, and then Harrison Jr. maybe do a post or whatever the case may be. But they need to do a lot more play action when it comes to that sort of thing to let um, Kyler throw on the run. He likes he doesn't like he's not really a pocket quarterback. He likes moving around in the pocket, trying to open up some space, get a little bit more time. So if you can let the defense or the cornerbacks kind of freeze off that play action, that'll help the passing game a lot more.
I like that. I think they need just one more lineman. They've been drafting some linemen, but their O line still looks kind of shaky at times. So I would say go ahead and get another lineman. They also need to fix whatever it is for Kyler in the second half of the season. They need to fix that because in the second half of the season, their offense never looks good. Doesn't matter who the coach is.
Yeah, and I talked about it. Remember, I was like, after the bye, I hope the like they were kind of like they're on a roll. They kept on going, like they're on a roll, and then the bye they kind of settled down, and then just completely dropped off the cliff.
Yeah. Next team, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I feel like the new coach is just a cop out answer,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that's really what it is. I mean, I don't. Did they have a bad offensive line? That's the only thing I really can think of.
They have a bad
I don't
offensive
think
line.
so. I feel like those two things would be my thing. They need to bring an offensive minded coach, which I think
Yeah.
what's his name, Doug Peterson is an offensive mind, but like need to bring somebody good. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. That just need a good coach. They haven't had a good
Yeah.
coach in a while.
I would say really the only star on this offense is Brian Thomas Jr. I would say bring Christian Kirk back. Maybe try to add one more dynamic receiver to open up some space for Brian Thomas Jr. The running backs are not very good. You could also address that problem. But I think you should go out and get another receiver and let Christian Kirk play in the slot.
Mm, yeah, that I would definitely put Christian Kirk because coming when he comes back, they definitely need to do that.
Yeah.
100%.
What about the Tennessee Titans?
One word to help them. I would say quarterback, and offensive line. I think them having a them needing a quarterback is huge because they have Calvin Ridley and he's actually done really well, and the off chance that Will Levis, can actually complete a pass, their team does pretty well. They have a solid defense, but it's hard to have a solid defense when your quarterback just keeps turning it over and over and over and over and over again. So I would go, yeah, I would say quarterback and offensive line. But I guess their offensive line isn't bad if their running game's not bad. So quarterback would be the biggest issue.
Yeah, overall they have some pretty good pieces when you think about Ridley, Pollard, even their tight end Okonkwo. I like um, Akine, Westbrook Akine.
Oh yeah.
He didn't have a ton of catches this year, but he had a decent amount of touchdowns. So I think you definitely got to move on from Will Levis. I think that was a very bad pick, that draft, and you drafted two busts in a row with Malik Willis and um, Will Levis right after that, and Malik Willis actually looks kind of decent with the Packers. So
That's what I'm saying. It's like the biggest thing that they shouldn't have done is fire Vrabel.
yeah,
Like it just
could
doesn't
be
make sense.
could be an organizational issue
Yeah,
where they need
I
to
guess that makes sense.
where
But
they need to fire some of the GMs and the owners and things like
yeah,
that.
I agree. So, but yeah, I don't even know who you would bring in though, because would you take another risk at a draft where the quarterbacks aren't really that good?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, so you would, if I, for me, if I truly, truly, truly needed a quarterback, I would go into free agency, and I wouldn't take a gamble on the draft, especially when the draft class looks like it is, because there's
Yeah,
just
they
not
have
that many draft quarterbacks.
they, they have one of the top picks. I'm not sure where they're sitting at.
I mean, yeah, at least top five.
Yeah, I think they're like probably number 3 or 4.
But what quarterback would you bring? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, like I said, I think if you're gonna take a gamble and go get Dylan Gabriel from Oregon.
Is he a senior? Is he going into the draft?
He, I don't think he's a senior, but I think he is going into the draft. He might return, I guess, but I think your value right now is going to be decent after this college football playoff. If they win the championship, I think his value is going to skyrocket.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know.
I definitely would not draft Milrow if I was the
No,
Titans. I think
not at all.
I think that's a bad thing for them.
He still needs some developing.
Yeah, he he is. I would be very nervous if my team drafted Milrow. I would not feel very good about that. I'm scared for whoever drafts him because I think he might be a really bad bust.
You think he's gonna go in the first round?
Some people have him projected as the first round. A lot of people have the Jets taking him,
That would make sense. That would make
but
perfect sense, actually.
yeah, I don't know. What about the Denver Broncos?
Running back.
Yeah, 1,000%. That's what I was going to say.
It's the biggest hole that you guys need to fix.
Yeah, yeah, they need a running back. Their offensive line is solid. Receivers, I think you can work with the receivers that they have. Tight ends are kind of trash. You could go tight end there
Yeah,
too.
that was another thing I was gonna say, but I feel like the tight
But
end isn't like it's either you have a really good tight end or you just don't utilize your tight end. You know, it's like you have a
yeah,
really good catching receiving tight end or you just have a blocking tight end and then you just go with your receivers.
there's some really solid running backs coming out of this draft that I'm excited to see. So, like if you everyone has Genty going to the Cowboys, I feel like that's not going to happen just because that's what everyone thinks is going to happen, and the Cowboys never go with what everyone thinks is going to happen. But if the Broncos can't get Genty, which I would imagine they will not be able to, there's still some really solid options. Caleb Johnson from Iowa, he looks really good. Later in the draft, I like Neal from Kansas. Um, there's quite a few different running backs that you could look at. So they have a gold mine of who they could pick this year in the draft if they want to go after a running back.
I'm telling you though, if they get a running back first round, highly I think I'm gonna draft that running back in fantasy.
Yeah, yeah,
Because that's or I'll draft Bo Nix because if Bo Nix comes out and has a running back, has a running game behind what they are like right now, his
yeah.
fantasy stock is going to shoot up.
Oh
Yes, it
yeah,
can.
he'll be that'll be good. Woo! You know what time it is?
Oh wait,
Fantasy highlight. Ooh, I like the graphic. That's nice.
Let's see. Let's do this. Is this? It's a little bit of a highlight. There.
This is for this is for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. I thought it'd be fitting to include these two into today's fantasy highlight. These guys are really the two guys that are fighting the hardest for fantasy MVP. If you ask me, I think it should still be Saquon Barkley, but there is an argument for these two guys. Lamar Jackson, 3,580 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, which is really impressive. 743 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. And then Josh Allen on the other side, 3,395 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, only 484 rushing yards, but he has 11 rushing touchdowns, which is a lot. They are vying for MVP. Lamar Jackson just threw 5 touchdowns in this game against the Giants. He is looking to make his 3rd MVP, his 2nd consecutive MVP in a row. I think the 3rd in the past 4 years, which is pretty cool. Josh Allen has never won the MVP before. And he, with the amount of touchdowns he has right now, accounting for, what would that be, 37 touchdowns? They are tied, actually, Lamar and Josh Allen, for the amount of touchdowns they account for. What are your thoughts, Nim?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, is that between both of them, who would you want? Who do you think should be the MVP?
If I had to pick between the two,
yeah, because the MVP is more of a quarterback.
It's hard. It's hard. I'm going to say, and I don't think I would have said this until I looked at their stats today, I'm going to say Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree. The reason is because, number one, going into the season, nobody assumed that he was going to do well, which I guess doesn't really matter with the MVP voting. But Lamar Jackson has first-round receiver in Rashad Bateman, first-round receiver in Zay Flowers, arguably the best running back in the league in Derrick Henry. Who does Josh Allen have? First-round receiver with Amari Cooper 10 years ago. First-round receiver in Cole Kmet, which was like the 31st pick.
Oh, Keon Coleman.
Sorry. James Cook. Who's... Would you put him in the top 10?
Running backs?
Fringe top 10?
Yeah, he's a fringe. Yeah.
So I mean, you look at the teams with, and we're not even talking about defense because both of those defenses aren't that good. So you look at Josh Allen's supporting cast, and then you look at Lamar Jackson's supporting cast. You would think that Lamar Jackson would be doing a lot better than Josh Allen, but it's not the case.
Yeah, and usually MVP goes to the most winning team, and if it's between these two, Josh Allen's one more game. So
yeah, exactly. So I don't know,
but I think it still should be Saquon.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think Saquon is the MVP this year, but they'll never get to him.
MVP and normal MVP, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. But that is it from us. Nember, do you want to say anything before we get out of here?
Nope. Just don't forget, if you're in California and you spill something on your desk, go grab bleach right away.
We will be back tomorrow. Darian should be here. And we will explain what we are doing for the holidays, the format of this show tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good night.